Ever since I started programming about 3 years ago, I've had this goal of having fun while doing something productive, with the added benefit of helping other people. I wasn't always sure how to make this happen, and sometimes it would be building random projects or getting an idea and executing on it. But there were definitely some ups and downs along the way. Sometimes I'd feel like what I was doing wasn't deep enough, or that my level of understanding was too low to create some actual change. I'd also felt that because I hadn't brought something into production or hosted it online, that my effort was being wasted. However, I wasn't doing the most to actually change this until a new opportunity presented itself. On my website, I got a response to an article that I wrote a little bit over a year ago about text summarization and note-taking, and it was an offer to work on a project in a similar vein of research. For me, this was a huge opportunity. It was a chance for me to get a bit of validation for what I was doing and showcase that all of the work that I'd put in could actually be useful for someone else, and it served as a perfect opportunity for me to gain skills and actually bring something into production. I spoke more with the responder Spencer, my now boss, and we ended up figuring out what exactly the project should be about, and we got straight to work. But let me give you some more context on what Spencer does and my role in the project. Spencer is the founder of PodKick, a podcast production company that works primarily with other businesses. He wanted a platform that would let users sign up and log in, get their podcast uploaded to the system, have it then automatically transcribed and summarized, which could then be used for creating or generating marketing content. This might sound simple from the start, but it was just that, a starting point. It laid the groundwork for a project that ran from late April to late August, where we are now. For me, it was an opportunity to learn about all of the things that I was missing from before, and I can now show you guys a demo and explain the entire process for this initial point. In these initial stages, I was able to learn quite a bit of things, from working on the cloud with Google Cloud Platform to understanding HTTP requests and communicating between the back and front end. I built the backend for the project in Flask and the front end using React, with a MongoDB database to store file and user information. Google App Engine was used to host the app, so I needed to learn how to effectively combine a variety of different components into a singular end product. In terms of general development, I also learned how to use Linux in terms of the development environment. Additionally, I did more research into text summarization, learning more about both extractive and abstractive models, which we then applied to the end product. Now, all of this might sound great, but the product didn't start off looking pretty. Since it was essentially a minimum viable product or a tech demo, it's quite rough around the edges, but I can share what it looked like in around April to May, and how it worked at this stage. Here you can see what the testing platform that we created looked like. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch modes to the developer mode, since we are hosted locally at the moment, and log in. We're using Auth0 right now, so I'm logging in with my email and pressing continue. And here we just need to click home, and we have our user here, and we are able to then log in, upload any files that we need to here, accepting WAV, MP3, and text file formats. I'm not going to upload an entry right now because we already have some in the database. And here we are. I'm going to take a look at this file, and we'll see a few options. It allows us to delete it, view a summary, and then view the summary in a special format. We'll use this option right now, and here you can see the entire transcript of the podcast, and anything that is picked out by the summary is in blue. As I mentioned before, this is just a proof of concept and is a marker for what is to come. You can see that here we have this entire list of files where a user can figure out what the file is about, get some additional information on it, as well as view or generate a summary based off of it. This was the basis for our next product, which I will be discussing soon. As I mentioned before, this was only the beginning, and we still had a lot more work left to do. Over the course of working on the project, and in early June, I had realized that our use case was still fairly limited, and even though we had added in features like summarization and user authentication, it wasn't ambitious enough. From a personal standpoint, Even though I had created a product and brought it to production, I wanted something that would be even more beneficial for our users. And that's where our reassessment came into play. After about a 2-week brainstorming and research period, I had finalized on a list of several features that we should be adding to make our product more unique and well-rounded. Some of these not only used text data, but audio data as well. Considering we're a podcast company after all, that made the most sense. Some of these features included pace analysis, speaker pitch analysis, and the standard sentiment analysis. For some additional functionality, I also decided to add in subtitling and CSV functionality for data export. This would just give people more freedom when it came to interacting with our application. My role from here on out switched from a full-stack developer to someone that focused on the back end. I continued to work on the Flask API, and I will now go over the new process and my new environment where I worked in. The next step for me was to add in all of the features I mentioned before into the code. Although I had done some of this during the brainstorming and research period, there was still a lot of testing and tuning left to be done. After this was completed, our next stage was to switch the hosting model. We had realized that App Engine wasn't the best for our use case, and so I learned how to use Docker and then switched to Google Cloud Run for hosting. MongoDB still held user and file data, with cloud storage hosting all of our users' files and other information. However, you can only go so far with just the backend, and the challenge of the front end still remained. Considering I was only experienced with a limited amount of React and design, we decided to hire someone else onto the team. We were lucky enough to find Anup, who handled all of the front end as well as payment processing for the app. This was a perfect chance for me to work in a team setting as well as learn a lot more about web development through him. Over the course of the next month or so, we were able to collaborate on Authentication and Authorization, which we implemented using Auth0, and I was able to make the API a whole lot more secure and write it using better practices. There were definitely a lot of learning moments for me here, and the experience was really rewarding when we reached a final MVP. But before that, we also got a logo designed, and I made the quick landing page that we could use to finally show it off. So without further ado, here's a quick demo of what I can share. Here we have our final MVP, and as you can see, we have our PodSize logo here, which is the name that we're choosing for this product. You can see that we have 2 files on this menu, and we can view them or delete the entry. You can also sort by analyzed or not analyzed, but both of these are analyzed, so there's no issues. We also have the ability to search, and that's just if we have multiple and want to filter things out. In this menu, we can add podcasts, and here we can view any account information alongside how many minutes you have left for analysis. You can also view the plans, which will allow you to upgrade the model, and payment is processed through Stripe. Now let's go back to our dashboard. Here we can see our individual files, first with a summary, then with a detailed look into the complete transcription. First, we can see the pace alongside the segment here. The segment corresponds to a single speaker speaking. And then we view it on a sentence-by-sentence basis, where we can obtain the sentiment and pitch associated with each entry. Not only this, but we can generate 2 types of files. First, we can generate a CSV, and we can also generate an SRT. I will show them both to you now. Here is the SRT. This is for subtitle information, and it allows you to import all of this data into any program which supports subtitling. Our CSV format can be used so users can have more in-depth access into their data, and they can use it for their own purposes. We provide the transcription, whether or not that sentence was extracted by the summary, the sentiment, and pitch data if it's beyond the norm. This is useful in many circumstances, so we thought it was best to provide it. Overall, working at PodKick has been an amazing experience. one that has allowed me to learn and build at the same time, all the while forming connections and gaining access to a whole new set of skills that I'm sure will be extremely useful for me in the future. However, whether it's building an API or hosting something on the cloud, none of this would be possible without Spencer, so I'd like to thank him for supporting me throughout this project and my journey in general. To everyone who's still around at the end of this video, I'd also like to say thank you to you, and I hope that you'll see me around at the end of my next one. That's all, and bye-bye.